Every year, it seems that there is a growing debate at our house as to what to eat at holidays. You know, all of a sudden, they think it's good to have ham at Christmas. Do you all have ham at Christmas? You don't have ham. Ham's for Easter, right? Let's see. I have one daughter here. Let's take a vote. How many people have ham for Easter? Yeah. What do you have? You have ham for Easter, and you can have turkey. That's what Charles Dickens said for
Thanksgiving.
Well, Christmas. But you definitely have it for here. I'm a traditionalist. I have a great bias that way. A big roasted turkey with stuffing in it so I can stuff it in me and sleep the rest of the afternoon with gravy and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. Why do they call it sauce when it's a jelly? But anyway, I'm pretty traditional that way. But I started thinking about it because I have at least one daughter who would like to have ham, I think, anytime she can. And it made me wonder, And of course, you can find anything on the internet, and I all of a sudden began to see things pop up of all these new trends at Thanksgiving time. Different things you can eat because, it's just a get-together, so people come up with creative things. And one of the items offered was salmon. Salmon on Thanksgiving. Now, I understand the health craze, and I understand how good fish is for you, and particularly salmon, and our society's all concerned about all that kind of stuff. But mind you, I have never seen a picture of a pilgrim handing a salmon to their Indian neighbors. However Burroughs and Ive and Hallmark came up with that, I've never seen that picture. But it did make me think. It made me think and reflect and kind of connect some dots if I set aside my bias and my prejudice and so forth to just reflect on Thanksgiving and salmon. You see, actually, they have a lot in common. Bear with me now. Salmon, are birthed, the spawning takes place way up in the freshwaters, in the mountains, right? And they grow and they develop, and where do they go? They go down the rivers, and they fight through the rapids and out into the ocean. And in the process, they actually physically transform to move from freshwater to saltwater, where they spend their adult life, and they're out there churning and burning and swimming, and then at some point the clock ticks and it says it's time to reverse the process. It's time to go home. And that drive is so powerful that they leave the salt water, they get back into the rivers, they fight their way through the rapids against the stream, trying to avoid the bears, the fishermen, the eagles, and all the other things that try to take their lives because they want to go back to the place where it all began. They want to go back to the safe, the nurturing, the environment in which it all started. They want to go home. They want to go home. And isn't that, in many respects, at least in our mental image, a lot like Thanksgiving? The holiday that calls us home. Reminding us of our roots. Inviting us away from the hectic pace of the big life. And then many demands, either real or contrived, that we claim or we feel. That place where we find our personal worth in what we've done or what we do or what we accomplish or what we achieve or what we own. And it calls us away from all those other distractions and all that stuff. It calls us back to a place where we can just be. It is so theological. Because God created us not to be human doings, God created us to be human beings. And the salmon go back to where it began. They go back to where they can be and give life again. And in many ways, this holiday calls us to do the same, to go back to what symbolizes that seed of life, that nurturing, that beginning, that rootage that we all long for, because I believe that it is in our DNA as well. Like the salmon. We all came from that at one point in time. There's that image in our mind, and I know it varies from family to family, but at some place, in some point, in some family, whether it's your natural one or the one that was created around you, there is that memory, that place we go where we got nurturing, where we got our values, where we got our perspective, where we got that love and forgiveness. There is that memory ingrained into us. And then we all at one point decided we wanted to go out into the big world too. We wanted to go out into the ocean, into the salt seas, and explore life. It changed us. Just like the salmon, we have to adapt, we have to be different, and whether we like to admit it or not, we have become other than we were. But then isn't it interesting how, especially at this time of year, where do you want to go? You want to go back. You want to go home. You're drawn there to your roots, to your beginning. What, at least in our mental image, it was all about to begin with, factual or not. This holiday draws us there. It draws us there like no other, inviting us to find strength and power and, the center of our core in remembering. And in celebrating where we came from and those people who were important to us and the gifts they gave us that live on even beyond their own presence. To go back to the table, back to the home, back to that safe environment where we connect with people face to face, not by tweet, not by Facebook, not by Instagram, but where we actually have to look at each other and talk. Talk with people that we love, talk with people we don't love so much. Because there are always guests at the table. There's always the cousin who comes in. Anybody here watch the Goldbergs? There's always that brother-in-law who shows up, right? Who has a little different world perspective than you do. But the table, the gathering, the holiday, it calls us back to celebrate relationships that were, to raise them up, to heal relationships that have been broken, to maybe improve those relationships that are constantly and annually a work in progress. Because around the table we embellish. We embellish stories. My life was so much better than it really was when I tell it. We embellish stories and we uncover the great joy of being together with those we love. And those we love whom we can only remember. Have you ever thought about how many stories Jesus offered that involved eating? You ever think about that? Go back and read the Gospels. How many times the story always evolves around food and around the table and around gathering. And sometimes it's with people he's familiar with, and many times it's with strangers. Zacchaeus, come down from the tree. Nobody liked Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector. They considered him a thief. Nobody liked Zacchaeus. Jesus says, come down, Zacchaeus. I don't want to just talk to you. I want to go into your house. We're going to have lunch. Do you think Jesus knew all those people in the 3,000, 5,000 on the hillside? Do you think he knew them? Do you think he probably agreed with all of them and liked all of them? I mean, we always say Jesus liked, but Jesus had issues with some people. I'm going to feed them. We're going to break bread together because there is something about that table, that breaking bread. It is sacred. It is holy. And we've lost so much of that in our society with fast food and eating on the run, and yet we're reminded by this holiday that it's about more than eating. It's about setting aside status and setting aside what we've achieved. And, you're just, at least for a short time, you are just with others. You're with others. That's when Jesus did his best work. When people would allow him to just be with them. This holiday time, though secular in nature, is divine in origin, I think. Because this time of Thanksgiving, this time of being together and eating, it is important time. It's holy time. It's a sacrament. It is a sacrament of daily living. Thanksgiving reminds us of the importance, not just merely of giving thanks, but of giving our time and giving our presence and just giving the gift of fellowship with others. Moving out of a world, becoming what we originally were, moving away from the world and all that it has made us into the world that God gave us at our birth and encourages us to live once again. And I suspect that intuitively all of us know this. You know, we talk about how expensive Christmas is. You know, Thanksgiving's a more expensive holiday than Christmas. Did you know that? Do you know why? Travel. Travel. All the days are blacked out. And what are the two busiest days of the travel season? If you want to get an airline ticket or you want to get home and the prices go up, it's around Thanksgiving. Because intuitively, somehow, like these salmon, people are drawn to go back to whatever that image is, to whatever those people are, to whatever that relationship could be that represents who we are at our core. Why do we do this? Because it's ingrained in us, in our spirituality. God made us that way at birth. We're designed to live in relationship. And this day gives us the opportunity to celebrate relationships with pilgrims on the journey with us, to remember the past, to give thanks for the present, and to believe awesomely in the future. That's what we remember. That's what we celebrate. And when we do this week, if we do it, we discover not just the richness of the day, but the power of our connections, the significance of our roots sown deeply at our birth by the God who made us. I don't usually end my sermons with poems. You know, they used to say in seminary, Bill can remember this, right, Bill? When you were in seminary, they said 3 points in a poem. That was a good sermon. Isn't that right? And now that's what it boiled down to. Give them 3 good points in a poem, and you're good to go till next Sunday. But I found this one, and I hope it kind of wraps it all up. Getting together to smile and rejoice and eating and laughing with folks of your choice and kissing the girls and declaring that they are growing more beautiful day after day. Chatting and bragging a bit with the men, building the old family circle again, living the wholesome and old-fashioned cheer just a while at the end of the year. Greetings fly fast as we crowd through the door, and under the old roof we gather once more. Just as we did when the youngsters were young. Mother's a little bit grayer, that's all. Father's a little bit older, but still ready to romp and to laugh with a will. Here we are back at the table again, telling our stories, but just now as women and men. Bowed are our heads for a moment in prayer. Oh, but we're grateful and glad to be there, home from the East Land and home from the West, home with the folks you've deemed dearest and best. Out of the sham of the cities afar, we've come for a time to be just who we are. For here we can talk of ourselves and be frank, forgetting position and station and rank. Give me the end of the year and it's fun when most of the planning and toiling is done. Bring all the wanderers home to the nest. Let me sit down with the ones I love best. Hear the old voices still ringing with songs. See the old faces. Somehow now they're unblemished by wrong. See the old table with all of its chairs. It's time to put spirit and soul back into your Thanksgiving prayers. Eat a little salmon this Thursday. Amen.